My name is Marissa Mitchell, and I teach English at... Does that sound lame? Am I boring?
Yeah.
Rats. My name is Marissa Mitchell, and this is my student Gwen, who is... What word am I supposed to use again?
Queer.
No. I am totally not using that word.
Sorry. Can we just start things the gay way?
I guess that kind of depends on what that means. You know, I'm actually...
Old?
This is harder than I thought it would be.
Well, you're an ex-military, rule-following teacher, and I'm a big gay ball of gender nonconformity.
This is true, but surely there's a workaround for this disconnect.
What if we just focus on the fact that we both really like these books?
You know, we do have that in common, and we communicate really well when we talk books.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to share 3 books with you today. They're absolutely marvelous.
Absolutely homosexual.
The first one is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alir Sines. The narrator is Aristotle, we call him Ari, a Mexican-American teenager living in El Paso, Texas in the late 1980s.
Ari's a really closed off guy because of his family. His dad's a Vietnam veteran and his brother's in jail and his family won't talk about it to him. And we don't even know why he's in jail till the end of the book.
Communication. It's always communication.
Mm-hmm.
Ari doesn't have many friends, but he meets Dante at a public pool, and Dante offers to teach him to swim, which is a nice thing to do. They ultimately become good friends, and Dante is the more academic of the two. He loves to talk about art and literature, and Ari does a lot of listening.
Dante tends to wear his heart on his sleeve, whereas Ari's more closed off, and when Dante talks about boys or anything he's feeling, Ari's cool with it, but he's like, we're not talking about this, don't go there. Let's just talk about something else. That's the one thing we're not talking about. And Ari probably feels something beyond friendship for Dante, but he doesn't really recognize it. But we start to see it when a car's barreling towards Ari, and we're not gonna spoil that for you. But this is very relatable for teens questioning their sexuality, because most straight kids don't experience the fear and anxiety of questioning who you are. And the stigma of being gay is just an added bonus.
Some bonus. That's a really good point. When I was in 7th grade and I had my very first crush on a boy who happens to now be my husband, it never occurred to me to worry that people might judge me because I was liking a boy.
When I was in the 7th grade, I got my first crush on a girl, and yikes, I was kind of freaking out because I had been in Catholic school my whole life up until the 7th grade, and that's when I switched to public school, and I made friends, and I didn't know how they'd feel about me possibly being gay, and it was just something I was really worried about, and I would think about it, but I wouldn't tell anybody about it because I was too scared of the reaction, and I wasn't even sure myself. So I was confused, and I almost didn't want it to be true because I didn't want any complications.
That seems to be almost the case with Ari. He even tries to get involved with a girl, but it doesn't help him at all. It doesn't solve his identity problem. And then Dante moves out of town, so they start writing letters back and forth. No email, remember, this is the 80s, before your time, little one.
Oh.
And Dante is more and more open about his sexuality in the letters, but Ari seems to back off of it even further.
Mm-hmm. When I finally made friends later on, when I had gay friends who are openly gay and willing to talk about it, I felt that I could share my feelings. And when Ari's family starts opening up about their stuff, the war and his brother, they figure out that Dante is in love with Ari, and they don't seem bothered by it at all because they have Ari figured out before he does.
As a teacher, this broke my heart, because when I was reading this book, and this kid is struggling with his feelings, and I'm cheering for him the whole way, and I'm hoping he figures it out because I have it figured out, and he doesn't. And that's kind of like what happens in real school when I see kids struggling.
Yeah.
And I see where they're headed and I want to help them, but I can't. The plot thickens, and and lots of difficult events happen to both boys. But at the end, Ari finally understands who he is. And he even says, "One of the secrets of the universe was that our instincts were sometimes stronger than our minds."
Boom. Mic drop.
And I recommend it to educators or anyone who works with teens because so much goes on in their minds that we don't see, and we need to be mindful of what they frequently struggle with.
Way to end it with something nerdy.
I'm nothing if not predictable.
Speaking of old, let's move forward in time with a novel that takes place in the modern era of technology.
Bet.
Please don't ever say that again.
Sorry.
I'm ignoring you now. Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli takes advantage of today's social media, which I love.
And I hate. You kids and your Twitter via Insta chat.
It's better than the chalk and slate you used growing up. Anyways, the main character Simon utilizes social media to talk anonymously online with a pen pal who's also gay and in the closet. They're both intelligent and thoughtful guys whose conversations range from religion to music to art and eventually to dating and coming out.
One thing I'm constantly reminding my students of regarding social media is that when you put something in writing, you usually can't take it back or control it because people can screenshot it or they can share it, and some kids seem really surprised when that happens. And in this case, Simon leaves his email open on a school computer, and another student, Martin, sees it and discovers Simon's secret. And Martin gets this brilliant idea to blackmail Simon, and in exchange for Martin being quiet about Simon being gay, Martin expects Simon to set him up with his best friend Abby. That's a really classy dating strategy, by the way. The problem with this is it also keeps Simon and Blue from revealing their identities to each other because they're afraid of what could happen. And Martin, obviously, because he's a real winner, doesn't end up with Abby and decides that Simon hasn't upheld his end of the bargain, and he outs Simon publicly on the school's Tumblr page. I can't even imagine what that would be like.
Yeah.
To have your personal business shared in that way. And I think you can agree with me, this use of social media is a real disadvantage of the technology age because people are harassing and bullying each other. And if we think back to Aristotle and Dante, or even people in the 80s in general, when you got harassed or bullied, a lot of it was physical, a lot of it was verbal, but when you left school, you could at least escape. And nowadays, thanks to technology, you can be bullied from the comfort of your own home.
While Martin has his regrets, it's too late because once you post something online, there's no way of taking it back. Bruises fade away after a while, but screenshots don't. Martin outs Simon on Tumblr over their Christmas break, so while everybody's making their New Year's resolutions, Simon's terrified of what's going to happen when he comes back to school after the New Year.
And this concept of outing is something that I can't fully understand, and it's very foreign to someone like me or anybody who's heterosexual because we don't ever declare ourselves. There is no coming out. I know when I was 13, I never sat down and thought, gee, I wonder when I'm going to announce that I like boys.
All throughout the book, we're trying to figure out who Blue is along with Simon, and Simon's narrowed it down to a few of his guy friends, some of which he's actually had like little romantic moments with.
And I won't lie, I never figured out Blue's identity, and I was really surprised at the end when his identity was revealed.
I knew who Blue was about a third of the way into the book. When Simon's English teacher was passing back tests and he accidentally gave Simon the wrong test.
Okay, such a rookie mistake, let me point out, especially from an English teacher named Mr. Wise.
Simon hands the test back to its rightful owner, and when he does, they share a moment. And that's when I knew, because Simon's observation of the boy's behavior is what gave it away to me.
It was very, very subtle when I looked back for it after finishing the book. Honestly, I never caught on at all.
Don't feel bad. I think it's mainly because I'm like really, really gay and I get these things.
I'm not sure why that should make me feel better, but okay. Ultimately, what I really enjoyed about this book was Simon's courage. He's dealing with a peer's bullying, he's dealing with his own identity crisis, and he's still optimistic, and he has himself convinced that when he does meet Blue, whoever Blue is, it's going to be worth all the pain that it took to get to that point.
I love this book because it's that like cheesy teen drama I would have loved to read back when I first started questioning myself. And it includes like a variety of like gay, bi, and straight characters, and it creates like a normal setting for teens, something that other novels kind of tend to struggle with because they separate like the gays from the straights, and it's like, why are you doing that, man? But I admire it because I think it normalizes that and it brings normalcy to a subject that can be tense.
And the English teaching geek in me loves the play on words in the title. The Homo sapiens agenda. And if you follow politics, you tend to hear about the gay agenda. Homo sapiens is human. So the book kind of makes the very clear point that the gay agenda and the human agenda are the same. We all just want to be accepted and happy. And that's an important thing to remember. And now we get to the book rated most likely to make a teacher uncomfortable. This Book is Gay by James Dawson is a wild ride. The back cover even says, there's a long-running joke that after coming out, a lesbian, gay guy, bisexual, or trans person should receive a membership card and instruction manual. This is that instruction manual. You're welcome.
I agree. I mean, I already knew most of what was in this book, but I think it's helpful to both gay and straight people because it's informative about the experience, but not designed to persuade anyone or anything.
I think what I appreciate is the author is witty and sarcastic, and he addresses all sorts of topics, including stereotypes and dating hurdles, and he includes silly pictures, silly picture here, that keep the tone light, but the content is still meaningful.
I love the chart over here, page 47. The first stereotype, it says, all gay men dress like gods and dress like Fred Astaire, and then it says fact or fiction. And I guess it's the fact because it says, go to any gay club on a Saturday night and you'll see a sublime mixture of dad dancing, self-conscious shuffling, and over-the-top arms aloft raving. Some gay men dress well and some dress like David Hasselhoff.
Just so we're clear, there's nothing wrong with David Hasselhoff. I always appreciate authors and people in general who can make serious points without taking themselves too seriously. And when I read this book, I didn't feel bad about laughing at this author's words because he clearly wanted me to. And there are other times when I'm not sure if I'm supposed to find something funny, and I don't laugh, but at least when I read this book, I could learn things and enjoy it and not feel guilty because he was trying to be funny.
And I love this book as a resource for straight people because sometimes I think they may take political correctness just like a bit too seriously and they're afraid to mess up labels and then it just gets kind of like, I don't know, maybe they can't learn as well because they're so worried about like, they're trying to like take it in and like make sure they remember, and it's just, they're trying to be accepting but they find that they're criticized for being wrong, and so this book is so lighthearted it just doesn't feel like a lecture. It's easier to learn.
I agree.
I know as a straight person it's kind of hard to understand, but I hope you learned something.
I'm still not using the Q word.
It's okay. Baby steps.
Okay, serious note. Content alert. I know. This is probably best suited for older teens than adults because there are some pretty explicit passages and references to health class type topics and body parts.
That's what I came here for.
Wow. So, the more you know...
We're not saying that.
Oh, come on. Sorry.
These 3 books can bridge the gap that everyday conversation doesn't. We don't always understand each other, and not for lack of trying, but discussing books seems to help a lot.
Because, whether you're old and nerdy,
Or young and fabulous,
we need conversation to understand each other, and books can start that discussion.